On the 30th of November, class design is about to be totally redefined for Classic WoW. Season of Discovery isn't just vanilla classes with a little bit more spice, they're being totally redesigned from the ground up with a heavy focus on more fun and hybridization. And honestly guys, I think Blizzard are only just getting started. In the future, it wouldn't surprise me if things became even more groundbreaking. It's great to see Blizzard actually taking some risks and experimenting with what a Classic Plus server can become. And nonetheless, these new class additions at a first glance can be a little overwhelming. I mean, what class should you even play now with all of the changes? Well, by the end of the video, you should have a better idea on what class to roll, or you get so excited that the decision becomes even harder. Just remember guys that the theme of this seasonal server is discovery, so if you think that learning stuff about SOD before you've played it will actually ruin the experience for yourself, here's a crazy idea. Turn the video off now instead of moaning like a typical WoW baby in the comment section. So as you know, in SOD they are adding runes to the game. They are similar to legendary affixes in Diablo 4. They will add a class talent or a totally new ability from the many different WoW expansions, and they are actually obviously assigned to your gear pieces. Be sure to watch the whole video as many new abilities have been data mined. For instance, a gladiator stance for warriors that will allow them to use stance specific abilities in all stances. But remember, data mined abilities are definitely not confirmed to be in the game. Let's begin with the druid. The focus here has definitely been to make every druid spec viable so that the druid isn't just a healer at endgame, but also to make the healing spec a little more interesting. We have the addition of Savage Roar, Mangle, and the data mined Tiger's Fury. The Pharaoh Druid will definitely be powerful enough with this toolkit to make them a formidable DPS like they are in Wrath of the Lich King. And the same goes for balance with the addition of Star Surge and Sunfire. Interestingly, Sunfire can also be used in bear and cat form, so it's going to be nice for when bear tanks want to do some ranged pulling. They will also have a party-wide buff called Wild Strikes, which is basically Wind Fury Totem, and there's also this ability called Furious Stormrage that allows a healer to spam Wrath for no mana cost, and basically allows the possibility for you to be a hybrid DPS and healer. Healing druids can also get Life Bloom, Living Seed, and Wild Growth. By the way guys, if you want to see every single ability that is confirmed to be added in Season of Discovery, I have made a huge spreadsheet of them all for every single class. But all you gotta do is subscribe to the channel and go to my subscriber only trailer. And if you want to level up your characters and your professions really fast when Season of Discovery drops, be sure to check out Zygor's guides. They're going to be going all out for when Season of Discovery drops, making guides for every element of the game, so be sure to check that out. Hunter runes seem to be more focused on making your rotation more interesting while also allowing you to be a more viable melee DPS. This is made possible by Flanking Strike, where you and your pet simultaneously deal 100% melee damage, but it can also boost the damage of Mongoose Bite and Raptor Strike, and then also Raptor Strike has a chance to reset the cooldown on Flanking Strike. You also get this very strong cleave melee attack ability called Carve that strikes every target in front of you. You also have the option to ditch your pet for 25% increased damage. This will likely be the meta strategy for anyone not playing Beast Mastery. They seem to have taken a lot of influence in the retail version of Marksman, especially as you can get the Sniper Training Room, which increases your crit chance by 30% when you haven't moved in 6 seconds. You will also get Cobra Strike, the Exposed Weakness debuff added in TBC, and also an ability to make your multi-shots also trigger a Serpent Sting. You've got classic stuff like Kill Command, Explosive Shot, Chimera Shot, and the Beast Mastery talent, which basically turns your pet into Mike Myers. Interestingly, a new aspect has been data mined called Aspect of a Lion that increases all stats by 20% and all party member stats nearby by 10%. I imagine that's going to be the main meta play for a melee hunter. There's also a buff that's been data mined, literally called Warlock Pet buff, and it hints that pets will actually scale with your stats because they didn't actually in the original vanilla. Mage runes will allow you to be any kind of mage that you want to be because of all the hybridization, but also weirdly allow you to become a healing DPS hybrid. I think instead of mage having 3 DPS specs, Arcane will become a healer hybrid. People think that it's a bit cringe, but to me it makes sense. I mean, there have been many wizard mage characters in other fantasy universes that are healers, like for example the sorceresses in the Witcher franchise. Regeneration is a long hot effect that doesn't do as much healing as a typical hot, but converts 100% of your arcane damage into healing through the Temporal Beacon buff. This simultaneously applies when you put regeneration on the target, but can also be applied by a new AoE heal called Mass Regeneration. And a rewind ability will reverse the damage taken in the last 5 seconds by all targets with Temporal Beacon. They've also added a very hard-hitting arcane damage ability called Arcane Surge that deals damage based on your remaining mana, scaled by 300% of your total mana, but it does actually consume all of the mana and increases regeneration after. I really don't want to know what this is going to be like combined with a Pom Pyroblast. Iconic mage talents and spells have also been added like Fingers of Frost, Burnout, Living Flame, Icy Veins, Ice Lance, Arcane Blast, and Living Bomb. The improved elemental ward talents from TBC have also been data mined. Paladins would be glad to know that their new runes will make Ret and Protection perfectly viable in raiding. They've added Avenger's Shield, a taunt, Aegis, which is an ability similar to Holy Shield, Divine Storm, Seal of a Martyr, which is basically the TBC Seal of Blood, and also obviously Crusader Strike. Exorcism can be used on any target. They also added Divine Sack and Rebuke, which is the Paladin's Kick, which is interestingly not even in Wrath of the Lich King yet. And weirdly, they have this new one called Horn of Lordaeron, which is basically the Death Knight's Horn of Winter. Beacon of Light has also been added, with an ability that can debuff Fear and Sleeps. Data mining also shows buffs to Righteous Fury, and they might be adding Rebound, which was a TBC talent that increases your chance to block after you receive a crit. The Priest runes will focus on adding multiple healing playstyles and making Shadow Spec more viable. Strength of the Soul reduces the duration of the Weakened Soul debuff on the target when you use healing abilities on them, making speccing Deepen Discipline very likely worth it. There's an extra dot called Void Plague that's been added, and along with Mindseer, so priests will actually do some competent AoE DPS. There's a new cooldown called Homunculi, I have no idea how it's pronounced. It's basically similar to a mage's mirror image. Souls will attack the target and debuff it. Shadow Word Pain can also be automatically spread to nearby targets with the Shared Pain rune. Surrender Pity has also been added, which is a buff that speeds up the cast time of your big, longer heals when you cast your small, faster, cheap heals. Twisted Faith boosts the damage of Mind Flay and Mind Blast, and the Priest will also get some of its iconic abilities like Prayer of Mending, Circle of Healing, Penance, Shadow Word Death, and Shadow Word Barrier. Rogue runes will focus on making poisons more viable, but only in theory for Horde because, as you know, they would have to change how Wind Fury works and how it interacts with weapons. They're adding some iconic rogue toolkit abilities that always felt missing from vanilla, while also strangely making the concept of a rogue tank viable. This is made possible by the rune Just a Flesh Wound. It turns Blade Flurry into a defensive cooldown and turns Feint into a taunt. You also get a finishing move called Blade Dance that increases parry chance to a maximum of 10%, and a new strike ability called weirdly Main Gauche or Gooch. Sounds a bit strange, sounds a bit rude to be honest, but anyway, and essentially does the same, so that's a constant 20% constant parry chance in theory. Slaughter from the Shadows makes Backstab and Ambush cost 20 less energy, and they've also added some iconic ranged abilities from the Outlaw Rogue spec on retail like Quick Draw, which is similar to Concussive Shot, and Between the Eyes that buffs attack power and causes a stun. We've also got some other classic stuff like Deadly Brew, Envenom, Saber Slash, Mutilate, and Star Strike has also been added. Shiv has also been data mined. Shaman, as you probably guessed by now, has had their meme specs made more viable. Elemental will be buffed by abilities like Lava Burst and Overload that has a chance to cast an extra spell for half the damage, and Enhancement will get Dual Wield and Lava Lash. Weirdly, Shamans have also been given the power to tank with the addition of Shield Mastery, a stacking armor increasing buff that regenerates mana, and the Way of the Earth rune that increases threat and turns Earth Shock into a taunt. They also have a hybrid healing cooldown called Ancestral Guidance, where 25% of your damage converts to healing on 3 nearby party members, but it's increased to 100% if your target is affected by Flame Shock. This is very similar to the Priest Vampiric Embrace that was added in TBC, however it's on a cooldown. They've also added a few things to make a Healing Shaman more interesting, like Healing Rain, Earth Shield, Shamanistic Rage, Water Shield has also been added, and there's also Molten Blast, which is a frontal cone AoE fire damage spell. Warlock runes will allow different playstyles to become more viable, namely dot playstyles, give them some actual good AoE capability, and also Blizzard are finally experimenting with a viable Warlock tank spec. Interestingly, for the first time, Metamorphosis has actually been made a permanent ability. Interestingly, they have made Metamorphosis a permanent form ability, much like a Druid, that comes along with a charge and an AoE taunt. It also makes Searing Pain instant, Shadowbolt into an AoE melee cleave ability on a 6-second cooldown, and turns Curse of Wreck into a 10-second cooldown taunt. Affliction would definitely be viable with Everlasting Affliction and Haunt added. Destruction will be more fleshed out and more unique with Chaos Bolt and Incinerate. We also have some cool stuff like Lake of Fire, causing Rain of Fire to leave a Flame Strike effect on the ground, and also buff pet damage when a pet's inside it. You've got Master Channeler that turns Drain Life into an instant cast debuff and boosts its healing generation, well, the healing drain generation, by 100%, but it does increase its mana cost. You also have Demonic Grace that increases your dodge and crit chance by 30%, along with some classic TBC and Wrath of Lich King additions, like Soul Siphon, Demonic Tactics, Demonic Pack, and also weirdly you can turn your Shadow Bolt into a Shadow Bolt Volley, which is basically an AoE ability instead. Warriors will be happy to know that many of their irritating restrictions are being removed by runes. Furious Thunder, for instance, will allow a tank to finally use Thunderclap in defensive stance. There also seems to be a heavy focus on making dual wielding more powerful, most likely for PvP. Frenzied Assault increases attack speed by 20% when dual wielding, Single-Minded Fury increases your physical damage and your movement speed by 10% while dual wielding. Then there's this very overpowered ability called Consumed by Rage, which increases melee damage by 25% for 12 seconds or a max of 12 swings whenever you exceed 80 rage. Now, if this doesn't have some kind of internal cooldown, then warrior playstyle may switch to be totally different. It may be more about saving and banking on rage to obviously optimize your auto attack damage. You can combine this with another really rude sounding ability called Flagellation. Kind of sounds like something else, but anyway, which increases your physical damage by another 25% for 12 seconds. And this happens whenever you use Berserker Rage or Blood Rage. And I can see the new Endless Rage rune going well with this because it increases your rage you generate by 25%. You also have Blood Frenzy, giving free rage on your bleed effects, Raging Blow, Warbringer, allowing you to charge in combat in any stance, Victory Rush, Devastate for the Protection Warrior, and a new ability called Quick Strike, and this is a two-hander weapon only ability that benefits from all of the benefits that Heroic Strike gets. So more stuff has been data mined like Shield Reflection, like I said before, something called Gladiator Stance. Honestly, this does look a little weird, mind you, because it's apparently a shield rune and it's not associated with Warrior, but apparently it allows you to use any ability in any stance. It's apparently categorized as a proficiency, similar to how you get a proficiency to use plate armor, so maybe it's going to be a new passive ability learnt at a higher level rather than an actual rune. And there we have it, my class overview for all of the new changes coming in Season of Discovery. Are you guys excited about the new rune system, or do you think Blizzard are going a little bit overboard? Let me know in the comment section below. Personally, I'm very excited. Anyway, my name is Metagoblin, until my next video, ciao.